In this video, we will be speaking between the things where lists and tuples look alike, and most especially on the differences. And among these differences, we will be highlighting the fact that tuples are immutable. Tuples, as we have already said, are basically sequences of values of different types, and their main goal is to represent a concept, to group together probably varied data that likely represents some complex type of data altogether. Lists, on their own hand, were basically sequence of data, a data structure aimed at storing and making it easy for us to access different sequences of data. So the data in lists always has an order, and we can conveniently access the elements of the list regarding that order. So tuples for representing complex concepts, lists for sequences. Of course, they are often used together. Okay, so sometimes you can have lists of tuples, like this one, list of points, which is a list that contains a tuple at each position. Or we can also, for example, present tuples that contain lists. This is a tuple, and in some of the fields, in this one, I have a field that's a list. Okay. Because of that, tuples have to be immutable. But let's see that on the Jupyter notebook. As we were saying, tuples and lists share some similarities, the fact that both are sequences, the way to access them, but they have many differences. Because lists allow us to access and change probably our elements conveniently, they need to be mutable. They can be changed conveniently whenever we need to. But tuples are not like that. Tuples represent some type of data, and they don't necessarily need to be mutable. Specifically, when we have defined a tuple, we can no longer change it. So by using regular Python assignment, we can assign a value to a tuple, and we end up with a position in memory containing our tuple. In this case, our tuple contains 3 float values and probably represents a point because we called it origin. If we try to change one of those values, so if we try to assign something new to origin of 0, we will get an error. Okay, an error that will say tuple object does not support item assignment. So tuples do not allow you to assign things to them, to change them. You cannot change the position in memory. If you remember, being immutable is the default setting for most Python data types. Okay? You can, of course, assign new things to them. I can have a origin that's assigned something, and then I assign something else to the same variable. I can do this. I'm not changing the contents of the memory. I'm just pointing my variable pointer somewhere else. Okay? We can see this in the code, for example, here. Okay, we can just assign some tuples here, tuple to test, which has 2 fields, 0 and a character R, and a list to test, which has A, B, and C characters in each of its 3 positions, 0, 1, and 2. We start by printing them, the initial values, and then what we do is that we try to assign to them. Okay, basically, first we try to change the list, and we can first we can undergo a reassignment. So first we had some content for both the tuple and the list. We can reassign them. We can assign something else to them. That's not a problem. And then we can try to change the list. Okay, if we assign something to one of its elements, we will get a change. Our list used to be -2C and 9.2, and we have assigned to position 1, so to this position, another string which is changed, and we can do that. But if we try to do the same with the tuples, we will get an error. Okay, basically we will get the error we were seeing before. The tuple object does not support item assignment error. Okay, now this is taking a bit long to run, but let's just quickly recap. Tuples are used to represent complex concepts made up of different variables. Lists are used to represent sequences. They are both implemented using Python sequences, so we can access them in the same way, although tuples are defined with round brackets and lists were defined with square brackets. And then, because lists are thought of as something where I will have a sequence and I will be able to access my elements depending on their order and change them, they need to be mutable, but that's not the same with tuples. I can assign different things to the same tuple, but I cannot change the element in each of my tuples, except for one final thing. If I have a list containing tuples, a tuple containing lists, and I mentioned before that I could have that, I can modify them. The lists that live inside of my tuples, the fields of my tuples that are lists, those can be changed and there is no error. Okay, I could append here to my subject of 5 and I would get a change. I would not get an error.